Welcome to episode 6 of the Dongfang Hour podcast. I'm your host, Jean Deville, with you today from Toulouse. And as always, I'm joined by Blaine Curcio, my co-host, based in Hong Kong. In this week's very special episode, we are joined by no other company than Landspace, one of the most emblematic new space companies in China, with whom we will discuss commercial launch and also new space trends. But before we get into that, let's roll the intro.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to welcome you aboard the Dongfang Hour. Please make sure your seatbelt is securely fastened. Thank you.
女士们、先生们，预计空中飞行时间2小时15分钟，我们预计在当地时间下午6点25分左右到达。
So before we get started with our guest, I would like to give a quick intro on Landspace. So Landspace is a Chinese private space company that was founded in 2015 and that is engaged in the development and the operations of launch vehicles. It's based in Beijing, Xi'an, and Huzhou, and it is today consists of about 400 employees and is probably one of the most advanced Chinese private companies that are working on liquid-fueled rockets and potentially reusable liquid-fueled rockets in the future. Sometimes it is dubbed as the Chinese SpaceX, and Landspace has been developing a certain number of launch vehicles. The first one is a small, light, expendable launch vehicle that's solid-fueled, and that is called the CGWIC, and that was initially launched in October 2018. And also a medium-sized Methalox liquid-fueled launch vehicle called the CGWIC, which will initially be expendable when it will be launched in the second half of 2021, but in a second stage can be upgraded into a reusable version. CGWIC is able to launch 4 tons into low Earth orbit, and Landspace also announced that it would develop enhanced versions, which are the CGWIC-2A, 2B, and 2C, which will, according to their website, be able to put 6 tons, 17 tons, and 32 tons into low Earth orbit. Now, I consider Landspace to be probably in the trio of leading space companies, launch companies, commercial launch companies in China, with companies like iSpace, or 星际荣耀 in Chinese, or Galactic Energy, or 星河动力. All three are completing very important milestones in 2021 and 2022, notably the first launch of their liquid-fueled rockets. Landspace is also a very remarkable company due to the funds it has raised in the past, and let me just give a few examples of that. In December 2019, they raised $73 million US dollars, and in September 2020, so that's 3 months ago, they raised $175 million US dollars. And altogether, since 2015, their foundation, they raised something like over $380 million US dollars in 9 to 10 rounds. So that probably makes them, first of all, the most well-funded new space company in China. And also, second point, they're not just raising this money from anybody. If you look at some of the investors, you have very famous names in China. You have like Sequoia Capital China, Matrix Partners China, you have Country Garden, you have people like 36KR, and there are, of course, many others. Now, that's just for the company, but more interesting for this episode and more relevant is our guest, which is Kevin Xu, the Chief Marketing Officer of Landspace, which I will hand over to Blaine for a more in-depth introduction.
Thanks, John. Very helpful introduction on Landspace, and thank you all for joining us today. And thank you, Kevin Xu, our guest, for joining us. So I first met Kevin Xu, or Xu Yawei as his Chinese name. First met Kevin a few years ago at the China Space Day conference in Harbin. Kevin at that time had, I guess he'd been working for Landspace for about a year and a bit. So Kevin has been with Landspace for about 4 years, doing primarily marketing. Before that, Kevin was with probably the most commercial traditional space company in China, which is China Great Wall Industry Corporation. It's a subsidiary of CASC that is primarily involved in international commercial space business. During Kevin's time at CGWIC, he was involved in projects for with Pakistan, Nigeria, Bolivia, and Venezuela, among others. Prior to that, Kevin worked at the CASC, the China Academy of Space Technology, where he also had completed his master's degree. And prior to that, Kevin completed a bachelor's degree from the Huazhong University of Science Technology in Wuhan, one of the as far as I know, one of the top engineering universities in China, and one of the more competitive ones. So Kevin, assuming that I have not made any mistakes in your biography, in which case I welcome you to correct me, I welcome you to the Dongfang Hour, and thank you for joining us. And To start off the episode, I would like to ask, as I mentioned in your biography, you previously worked for China Great Wall Industry, and you now work for Landspace, and this would have been a rather big transition, especially in 2015, when the commercial space industry in China was still much smaller than it is now. And so, if I could ask, what was your, what caused you to make that change, that transition from China Great Wall to Landspace? And how do you see these two companies? How has the experience been similar or different with Landspace and with China Great Wall and with other experience that you've had in the space industry in China?
Okay. First of all, also I would like to thank Blaine and also Jean for inviting me in this Dongfang Hour. I'm very thankful for, let's say, your concern, let's say, on the Chinese commercial space, and also your interest in Landspace development, and also in my, let's say, personal career experiences. So talking about the difference or my driving force to let's say, to have left CGWIC and to have joined Landspace, I guess one keyword is change. So let's talk about the change from CGWIC. Actually, because when I was in CGWIC or CGWIC in Great Wall, my job position was from the IOD, the in-orbit delivery satellite, the full satellite system IOD project. Some of them were related to marketing, and most of it was related actually to the project management. So after the contract came into effect, and then I was looking after mainly on the space segment, on the launch services, on the development of the satellite, the IT, and also the launch campaign. And then later about the, let's say, the post-sale. We call it, we defined as post-sales. Actually, it was everything, almost everything about the in-orbit service period of all of those satellite projects. So for me, it was like cycle and cycle. So I first, let's say, when I joined in CGWIC, it was more than 10 years ago. It was in 2009. So my first project was PAXet 1R. And when I joined the project team, that was already in the after the EDC, let's say, the effective date of the contract. So it was more or less between PDR and CDR. So after that, and then I joined a little bit of the Bolivian satellite, the TK-1 project, and then NICHCOMSAT 1R, part of it, of the project management. But anyway, it's like just a cycling and a fixed cycling, let's say. I started from the marketing, or let's say the final stage of the marketing, and then I shift to the project management after it came into being. I mean, the contract came into effect. So it's like one project after another. It was like that, and then for me, for the very first project, like what I did in PAXet 1R, and also even a little bit like in PRSS, the remote sensing project for the Pakistani. Because these are a little bit different, because one is from the geo communication satellite, the other is for the remote sensing, the Earth observation project. So these two are a little bit different, but for all others, they are just something like copies of this project. So for me, it's the main driving force for me to shift from CGWIC to Landspace is I really want something different or more challenging, let's say. That was the main driving force. But don't forget, another background is that just in 2015, that was considered, let's say right now it was widely accepted that the point of view was widely accepted that that was the beginning year of the private space sectors came into being in China. So don't forget that. That was another quite important point, is that already several companies came into being, like Landspace, and also there were already several other, let's say, satellite companies. But the launch services, it was also, even for CGWIC, that was the first, let's say, the first international commercial space business. CGWIC was trying to practice at the very beginning back in 80s. Back in the 80s and the early 90s. So that was why I also would like to follow the trace of my former colleagues, or the guys I admire. Actually, I admire quite much. So I don't know whether that, let's say, that answered your questions.
Well, I think that's a really good insight, because I think that the takeaway from to a certain extent is that the biggest difference right now between the commercial companies and the traditional space companies is that the commercial companies are just developing much faster from a much lower starting point, because it's quite a recent phenomenon. But that there's a similarity, which is that they are developing along a similar path to the state-owned companies from, say, 30 years ago. So like you said, China Great Wall, their first real commercial business in the 80s was through launch. And it looks like right now the Chinese commercial space companies that are sort of most advanced in terms of maybe doing business internationally are going to be these launch companies that are going to be launching next year. So that's an interesting point.
Yeah,
John,
correct,
anything from?
correct.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and another. Right now, it's already 5 years after that, after the beginning year 2015. Right now, there are already 4 orbital launch tests amongst these private space sectors, and so Landspace and OneSpace, iSpace, and right now, let's say days ago, just yesterday, not days ago, just yesterday, Galactic Energy. So all of these could happen, within 5 years. So you couldn't really imagine this could happen in the traditional space sector. So, yeah, so that's I would like to add on.
And I have a question for you, Kevin, regarding moving from a state-owned enterprise to a private company. In 2015, you were one of the very first, and things have changed a lot between 2015 and 2020. Young graduates that come out of university, is their dream to join, more Landspace, iSpace, these private companies, or is it more, traditional state-owned enterprises like CALT or SAST?
Okay. I got your point, but it's really an interesting question, because in my opinion, still the majority, let's say, the majority fresh graduates, they still are showing to enter those, SOEs, let's say, because according to my observation, let's say, because, after all, no matter what it is, CASC or CASIC, let's say, they both cover the whole industry chain, from the very, upstream to downstream, even to the satellite, the space application. And, from the very upstream, that was the parts design. I mean, even for the IC parts, and even a little, quite small parts like, connectors, the electric connectors, they even cover everything. That means that a bigger view, let's say, if you joined one of them, even a little, even a small institute, you will have the potential to get the whole industry view, let's say, because you still have the opportunity to shift from one to another, or even a different job, let's say, job positions. So from my point of view, there are still quite a lot of fresh graduates. They're trying to get to enter those SOEs. To get, let's say, just to get a broader view. But some students, some fresh, when I was in when I was here in Landspace, joined Landspace in 2016, there was only one fresh graduate. You couldn't imagine. Let's say he was just let's say he was looking at the the bulletin boards of the ads from Landspace, and then he was thinking of that, and then he joined in Landspace. That was quite, let's say, also a quite pioneering thought, let's say, to join the private space sector. But it was true that totally quite few fresh graduate has this kind of we can call it spirit or ambition or something like that, but it's not quite many. And then right now it's already 3 or 4 years later. We have right now in our campus recruitment, you could imagine we have bunch of like thousands, at least the thousands of CVs to screen in. So that's already quite a change. What I would like to express that it's true that majority of them are still trying to enter the SUE because of the broader view. At least they think that they have the possibility to have a broader view. But right now, more and more fresh graduate, they are also trying to get a different perspective after they freshly graduated, and then to get in the to get a job position in the private space sectors, because this represents something quite innovative and quite new and more challenging for them. Because they also know that these these SMEs in the private sectors, they don't have that much resources as SOEs, and they can already make several orbital launch tests and orbital launch experiment. So they also would like to see what they can obtain from the career in these companies. So I guess this is the most attraction for them.
Thank you for that. And Blaine, do you have anything on also on new space vs old space, or do you want to move on to the more business questions?
I think we're good on new space and old space. So yeah, if we could move into the discussion on I guess on Landspace and sort of the commercial space industry in China more generally. So I guess my first question is, can you give us an overview of Landspace's target market? So you have the Zhuque 2 rocket that you are developing that, as far as I know, you hope to launch next year, and that will have, as far as I know, 2 tons of capacity to orbit, and that's a lot of space. It's a lot of rocket capacity to sell. So yeah, what could you give us an overview of who you're trying to sell to, and also if you can discuss a little bit, how you position yourself relative to the existing competition in China, which would be kind of the state-owned enterprises. But if you cannot discuss that, I understand. But yeah, so that would be a helpful, I think, start for discussion on Landspace, is the target markets.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, you already saw that, let's say, found that we are developing medium scale to even to large scale launchers, no matter, let's say, it is liquid or solid. So at the very beginning, we started. It was true that we started from the solid, the small scale ones. But right now, it is quite obvious and quite clear that we are aiming exactly to the medium to large scale launchers to provide, let's say, the ability to improve the commercial space sectors in China, especially the private satellite companies, to improve their ability of access to space. So that is to say, we're exactly aiming to the medium scale satellite, also large satellites, to get access to the space. So that's our market goal right now. And let's say this arena is not that crowded as the small launchers. right now you can easily tell so many. You can tell the names of the space, the private launcher companies, so many. There are right now there are iSpace, Galactic Energy, and Jiuzhou Yunjian, and also Deep Blue. There are so many, and but there are still quite few. I guess only one or two. We are aiming to the medium or large scale launchers. So that's our, let's say, generally speaking. And right now we can, what I can tell is that in the near future, after the successful launch, let's say the test, even the test launch of ZQ2, we also have the plan to develop even bigger launchers. I mean, bigger than ZQ2, have some boosters to add on ZQ2, the basic model of ZQ2. But first of all, the most important thing for us right now, especially in this year and in the coming year, is to make sure the successful launch of the test flight for ZQ2.
Okay, yeah, and very nice insight on the landscape of Chinese launchers, and as you mentioned, there are really a lot of them. I personally count maybe something between 10 or 15 Chinese commercial launch companies, and my question here is, a lot of Chinese observers they say that in the end, probably in 5 years or maybe 10 years, out of these 10 to 15, only maybe 2-3 will really survive because the market can only sustain that many launch companies. And I was wondering, for you, in your opinion, what are the key assets for a rocket company to survive? What key assets? Is it technology? Is it, what are the key features that a rocket or a rocket company must have in order to survive in this very competitive environment?
Okay. First of all, it is the innovative technology. So right now, what we are doing is a Mesolox fuel. So the rocket's ZQ2 is burning the Mesolox fuel. So that's a totally new combination of propellants. Even already quite innovative. Let's say compared to the traditional space right now in China, because CASC and cases, for cases they're mainly doing the solid ones, the solid state launchers, as X-Space is doing, like KZ Kuaizhou 1A and Kuaizhou 11. They're both solid state launchers, and for CASC, so they're, let's say, what they are doing right now is shift the technology from the toxic ones like the UDMH and the tetradioxide to those combination to the next generation launchers. They call it next generation launchers, including Long March 5, 6, 7, and the future 8. That is expected to have a debut flight by end of December, and even the future heavy lift launchers, Long March 9. So they're mainly burning the RP1, so LOX RP1. So that's the main difference. So what we are thinking, what we think for, let's say, for the technical advance is that the innovative technology. So that was the first, and then the second one is talent. We really believe that if you really would like to promote, let's say, to promote and to implement these innovative technology, and you will have powerful enough talents, experienced enough talents, and that's also another treasure we are cherishing quite a lot in Landspace. So, and then the next one is different. Let's say the next point. What we are let's say identifying is the different USP. When I talk about USP, that is the unique sales point. I mean different market segmentation, let's say, and we are trying to avoid crowded arena from other launcher companies. And that is why we just after relatively, let's say quite short after the launch, the orbital test launch of ZQ2, we shift quite let's say quite rapidly from the solid fuel to the Mesolox liquid fuel launchers. And we're trying to, first of all, we are trying to make another innovative technology to come into being into this launcher industry, and also trying to avoid a crowded arena. So Mesolox can help us with the, let's say, comparatively a larger thrust, and also higher, let's say, higher proficient, and also let's say more beneficial for the reuse. So that's why we choose Mesolox to enter this track, this arena track, let's say, and to avoid also the competitions and from the other small launcher companies.
Okay, that's interesting. Just a question from my side about, I guess the Chinese space industry in general, but then also Landspace in this context. So one of the things that always amazes me about China and about the space industry is how, because there are so many people in China, and because space is quite popular, and because the internet is so widely distributed in China, you have these things like X-Space selling a rocket on a live stream and having like 500 million people view this video, and it became, a really, I think, quite a big marketing success for X-Space, I think. And my feeling is that this is it's not something that's unique to China. Like in the US, I think, NASA does a pretty good job of commercializing space for the masses in some way. Like I see a lot of NASA t-shirts, for example, around just places. But I think there's this interesting kind of phenomenon that we're seeing, especially in China, where as space becomes kind of cooler, or like more of a hot topic, space companies are finding other ways of making money in addition to their core business of, let's say, launching rockets, or they are finding other ways of getting lots of publicity, let's say. So has Landspace, I guess, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, I know, for example, Landspace is, I think, noteworthy for having been a big sponsor at IAC, for example, which is quite unique for Chinese commercial companies. But I mean, are you guys doing anything in terms of, trying to commercialize in kind of different ways, or otherwise kind of stand out as a unique company from more of a kind of marketing or positioning perspective?
Okay, thanks for this question. It was, let's say, it's really interesting, and because just when you asked about this, we were already thinking how we can proceed with the some innovative marketing mode, or some innovative, let's say, sales strategy or marketing strategy, because we realized that right now, like what X-Space already did for something like the online auction sale, like they already did in cooperation with a quite famous, or I guess that was quite famous lady, an internet celebrity. What they did already impressed the public, and what we are trying to do is also to explore some online sales, or something like online marketing and marketing sales. Even we were even thinking of opening up some online shops on the famous right now the famous e-commerce platforms like Taobao or Jingdong, but it's just a general idea. But anyway, what we will do is definitely to explore some new marketing or sales strategy. It's for sure. It's not yet decided, but for sure we will try something new, especially let's say, in the background of the prosperity of the e-commerce right now in China. And you can see that there are so many youngsters, they are, let's say, they're living almost. They couldn't live without the internet. It's so convenient. But for the let's say for the satellite, the space industry, it's quite different. That's for sure. Because majority of our customers are still still from the traditional space industry. For example, the satellite customers, the satellite manufacturer, and also satellite manufacturer, and also satellite application sectors, something like that. It is for sure that these traditional customers will still make the marketings and sales in a more, let's say, more traditional way. But we are also trying to opening up some new business, still launch business, but more, let's say, more open to the public, to the consumers end. Like, for example, to make some space commemoration, like to have a big launch of your personal items, something like that. It's not yet decided, but anyway, we will try something new.
And I think that, as you said, young people today use really a lot the internet on their smartphones, and I think it's just a great way in general, by doing, maybe it's live streaming, maybe it's online shops, maybe it's other type of stunts. I think it's really a great way to reach out to young people and inspire them regarding space and private space. I have another last question here on business model and on target market. Very early on, Landspace was one of the pioneering companies regarding its relationships with foreign companies. Very early, there were, I think, agreements signed with Italian company Deorbit, with Open Cosmos in the UK. I think also there was Gomspace in Denmark. And today in 2020, because of coronavirus, it's really hard to travel abroad. Does all of this environment where things are much more difficult today, does this make Landspace more focused on the domestic market, or are you still really putting a lot of emphasis on launching foreign payloads?
Okay, actually for us, we didn't identify the big difference between before the coronavirus crisis and after, because we're still doing the same. Even right now, it's for sure it's more difficult to communicate and even to develop a business with the international customers from overseas. It's true, but it doesn't mean that we lower down the pace in contacting or in developing those international business, because let's say it's more like this coronavirus also brought us something, Maybe I can say we think differently, a different working mode and a different, let's say, communication way of communication. It's for sure. But sometimes, let's say, on the other hand, right now you don't have to, spend a lot of time in international traveling, and also, it was always boring, and when you wait for the boarding and also spend so much time in the let's say on board the plane. But right now you can just shoot all of these time in some other more, let's say, more interesting or more active contact with our customers. For example, like what we did, we have online meetings, and so this is it's just the only disadvantage is to coordinate different time zones, that's sometimes really a little bit, difficult. But after when you, let's say, after you already got used to this kind of working mode, and then it really bring you a lot of benefit in saving time. Sometimes it may improve with your working, let's say, the efficiency. I'm sorry, efficient. We never stop, let's say. So even under this coronavirus, we are trying. We're making efforts in developing both the domestic ones and the international ones. But for sure, the domestic one, let's say this year in person, let's say for the marketing or the marketing events, let's say, it's easier to get access to, and it's easier to develop, let's say. So there will be in the future, I guess, in the near future, we will see how the situation it will evolve from for the coronavirus crisis. I really believe all of these will end up, let's say, within less than 1 year and a half at most, because right now people are realizing we have to accept this this new way of life, let's say the new normal, to wear masks and so something like that to keep some social distance. And people are, more used to this new lifestyle and working style as well. The distance meeting, the e-meeting, something like that. And also there will be vaccines came into the market quite soon. Already came into the market, the vaccines. So I guess all of this will end up in not very long, let's say. Quite soon, we will have some more. You will see us on the international the space, let's say, space industry conferences or the meetings, and you will see us. You will see Landspace logos quite. Let's say for the coming year, you will see that quite soon. And for the domestic, it's for sure that right now we have more, let's say, more time to meet in person for the customers. So there will be also good news will come up. You will also see quite soon there will be some good news with our in the cooperation from Landspace with our domestic customers as well.
Okay, so I see.
Wow, some good news to be on the lookout for. I'm intrigued.
So so in a sentence, no big difference for us, because we have different ways of developing the international, both the domestic and international business.
That's good to hear. Okay, well, Blaine, do you have any other business-linked questions, or do you want me to move to technology?
All good on my side. Take us to technology, John.
Okay, so Kevin, I have one or two questions here on technology, and it's what some of the viewers also have asked us through the comments on YouTube or on Twitter, regarding reusability, because we know that Landspace is interested in making the ZQ2 reusable. Usually for reusable rockets, what is very common is to see on the first stage one central engine and then an even number of engines all around in a star shape. And this enables to do SpaceX style of vertical takeoff, vertical landing. And I know it's what iSpace, for example, is doing, and also Galactic Energy. And I know that the ZQ2 has a more traditional 4-engine layout on the first stage. I was wondering, can you give us some insights on how today Landspace is planning to make ZQ2 reusable?
Okay, also quite interesting question. So right now, I noticed that some fans of Landspace, they're questioning whether we will make the reusable technology available on the debut flight, the test flight of ZQ2. So definitely no. So the answer is definitely no, because for the debut flight, we will only make the vertical taking off, and then there will be no recovery, and there will be no reusable technology that already applied on that. But in the future, we will also do similar what SpaceX, or let's say the industry the industry is trying to do. So first of all, the reusable concept will be similar to all of them. Let's say all they are trying to do. The first stage, the full first stage engine will also recover, let's say, into the atmosphere with some racks, and with also with the engine, let's say, reignition. And then there will be, different, also the thermal shield around the rocket surface, and different technologies like the griffins also will be applied. So it's, let's say, just generally it's no big let's say no big difference, like something like parachute, like what Electron Rocket Lab is doing, something quite different. So no. So what we're trying to do is also the recognition of the engine and some of the engines, and then make it recover into the atmosphere, and then to land on the Earth again. So that's it. But definitely, it won't be applied on the debut flight.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, step by step. Don't try everything at the same time. Don't increase the probabilities of failure. Okay, that was a very interesting insight on ZQ2. And I have another question now on ZQ1. So it's a solid rocket, expendable, and we see that there was a first launch, I think it was in October 2018, but there has been none since. I was wondering, has Landspace abandoned this rocket to focus on ZQ2, or do you plan to launch ZQ1 also in the future?
Good question. Here I also would like to emphasize that we would not give up ZQ1, the solid launcher technology. For the question of why we right now ZQ1, the solid launcher, is not anymore in Landspace's portfolio, is that it's for sure it's more comparatively, let's say, the unit cost will be higher, that's for sure, and also for the qualifications of the making the solid engines, that is also quite difficult. Because solid engines more related to the missile technologies, and also it's under strong control of the from the policy, and also the qualifications. It will be a little bit difficult, it's for sure. So that's why we're not make it as the primary portfolio. But for sure that if there is some strong market demand, we can also restart the solid launcher project as what we already did on the Q1. But it doesn't mean that we will abandon it ultimately.
Yeah. That makes sense also, because you mentioned earlier that you were trying to avoid, the very crowded markets. And today we see that the 10, 15 commercial launch companies, they're all, at least doing this solid rocket, small lift launch vehicle. So yeah, it joins your earlier point.
Yeah, it's true. Another reason is definitely it is not easy to develop the solid launchers into a bigger one or heavier lift one, as what X-Space already did on KZ-11, Kuaizhou 11. And you also saw that for their debut flight. Unfortunately, we also hope that it could be finally a success. But unfortunately, yeah, we already saw the result. It was not easy. And another aspect is that liquid, especially the Mesalux one, is also more beneficial for reuse. As you already talked about, the reuse technology in the launchers, they seem to be a more popular technology that people are showing. But anyway, I guess someone of them, they say that it will be a big decrease of the cost. But personally, from my point of view, I guess it's only one, let's say, one reason. Another one is that the recovery and the let's say the recovery into onto the Earth, and it will bring us more imagination about the future application of this launcher, because you can see that already, like Elon Musk already let's say indicated that there will be in the future, let's say in the future, maybe more or less the same time as Starship already succeed, let's say, and then there will be another way of traveling for people for the intercontinental travel is to make use of the Starship, to take off and then maybe glide a little bit time and then to re-enter into the atmosphere and then land on the other port from on the other port of on another port of another continent, like from America, from the US, and then to Singapore or something like that. It's cool. It's also saving quite a lot of time, especially for those businessmen. Yeah. So I guess it will bring us more imagination of the applications, or also something like maybe cargo transportation as well, especially something like strategy cargo transportation when there is something like urgent need.
And so that is something that Landspace is looking into.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, I think that's all I have on technology. Blaine, do you want to add anything, or do you want to lead us to other topics?
All good. I think we have just a couple of.
Okay.
Kevin, go
another thing I think of is when we talked about the market, also the constellations, big constellations, especially the mega constellations, not only from the Chinese, let's say, space industry. Also, I guess right now it's more like from the US space industry and also the Chinese space. But I guess it will be also something similar in Europe or in the Southeast Asia as well. Definitely, we are also trying to target it in this market segment is the mega constellation, and at least so heavier lift and bigger thrust and larger capacity, and then the more payloads or the more satellites on one orbit plane we can launch, we can send into the orbit. So that's the philosophy.
That's a good point. And certainly, I mean, in China, I think it's been really interesting to see some of the commercial satellite manufacturers that have really expanded their capacity to manufacture satellites over the last couple of years. So I'm thinking about companies like ComSat, like 九天卫星, where they talk about being able to manufacture maybe 100 satellites per year by next year, and that they need to launch on something. And I guess 九天卫星 is going to be less needing to buy launch services from CALT than if it were like, say, aerospace Dongfang Hour company, something like this. So that makes a lot of sense that you have some opportunities for constellations in both China and maybe in the outside of China as well.
It's for sure, and not only ComSat, also like Galaxy Space and Galaxy Space was also, I guess it was even the first one to incorporate the mega constellation ideas in the private space sectors in China. So right now they're also doing that, and more companies as well, like there were some other companies as well, and also some state-owned companies like the SOEs, like Hongyan and Hongyun from CGWIC as well. So, and even Xingyuan and Xingyuan, that is aimed in the constellation of the IoT, the internet, the Internet of Things, and they already launched several experimental satellites as last year, I guess. Yeah, end of last year, and then I guess quite soon they will start the mass production of the satellite as well. And you can see that they also had the national space base in Wuhan, and which is aimed in the commercial launchers. What already X-Space already did in that base, and they have some they have let's say they have building and they have a factory there, X-Space, and also Xingyuan, and I guess Hongyun maybe they will also go, because that is a nationwide, not nationwide, national level space base. for all of like the spacecraft manufacture and also launchers in, let's say, mass productions for launchers and the satellites. So it will make sense that under this circumstance, there is no suitable. I mean, when I talk about suitable, it is both from the capacity and from the aspect of the cost. That is quite suitable for the batch, let's say the batch launches for the mega constellations into orbit right now. So Long March series and the Kuaizhou series, they were not originally or initially designed for this kind of space mission. So that is why we are, first step, we launch and we develop and launch the ZQ1, ZQ2, the basic model of ZQ2, and then later we can develop some larger launchers with heavier lift to make the mega constellation orbital space launch.
Yep, that's a very valid. That's a very valid point about the Long March family not really being designed for launching constellations. And just a note for our viewers, if you're interested in learning more about the X-Base and their CGWIC and their commercial industrial base in Wuhan, we have covered that a little bit in our weekly news update episodes from the last couple of weeks. So, but that was thank you, Kevin, for that information. That was helpful. So
let's say. Yeah, another point I would like to explain that. So they were not. So maybe maybe it's not proper that I say that it's they're not originally designed for that. But anyway, they are capable. Some models of from the Long March, for example, Kuaizhou 11, they are capable of launching the mega constellations. But I'm not sure. Maybe I can only say I'm not sure whether they were originally designed to undertake those space missions going on.
Yes, that makes sense.
Because according to our knowledge, is that each model from the Long March family, they have a comparatively specific, future mission type, let's say. Yeah. So mega constellation, I guess Long March 8 could also partially meets the requirement of those mega constellation orbital deployment, but not all, let's say.
Understood. Yep, that makes sense. Yeah.
So that's my personal, let's say, my personal point of view.
Yeah, no, certainly, and that's that makes sense. I agree with that for sure. So I guess that being said, so we have just a couple of questions about sort of opportunities for, or I guess the job market or the market for talent in the space industry. Then we have a few audience questions, and then we have our rapid fire questions. So we will we have a couple of topics remaining, but we'll try to move along through these topics. So. So I guess looking at the labor market, so again, as you mentioned earlier, Landspace, when you first joined the company in early 2017, is that you said there was only one recent graduate in Landspace, and I guess most of the other employees would have been former traditional space company employees or like the founding team or this, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, but just getting to my question, how has that changed since you first joined? So you mentioned that you now have a lot more applicants, but I mean, are you finding as there are more new space companies in China, as there's more interest in the space industry, are you finding there's more competition for the very best applicants, or are you finding that this increased interest in space has just made it so much easier to find people because everyone now knows Landspace and because you now have just lots of new people applying? So yeah, do you have any thoughts on how the job market has changed over these past few years?
Okay. So my personal feeling is that it's although there are so many space companies, let's say the private space companies, it's not that difficult when we are trying to recruit some, let's say, some mature and some experienced talents from the SOEs, let's say, they are also trying, let's say, to improve their, let's say, their salaries and also their comprehensive working conditions, and including, the salaries and also their let's say their social identity or something like that, to improve all of those comprehensive working conditions. So it's also let's say the SOEs, they're also making every effort to keep the talent. It's for sure, but it's not a big issue. Why? Because so once one company, they set an example of being able to make this, let's say, and then also there are many other companies are following this mode. It's kind of what's the name of this effect? I really don't know what it is in English, but anyway, in general, what I would like to say is that there are also more talents that you can find. Let's say more talents you can find as well. Mm-hmm. So generally, it's for sure that it's compared to 5 years ago. It is there are more companies, but I don't feel more difficulties in recruiting talents for this company.
And just to build up on that, I remember that a couple years ago, there was a story in the Chinese media about an engineer from Xi'an called Zhang Xiaoping, and he left the institute, he joined Landspace, and back then there was sort of a controversy about if he could or could not, but I mean, today nothing happened, so it's okay. And basically, I think by setting that example, it shows that people are able to perfectly legally move from state-owned enterprises to private companies. And so, as you said, that's setting an example. And
it's like, at least so when the Zhang Xiaoping event happened, and then later, it was indeed, it was true. Indeed, there was some controversy, but later people realized, and also the government, or let's say the people and the government, they all realized, they both realized that you cannot keep all of those talents under one system, like the state-owned company, and also you cannot keep one talent, let's say one group of talent within one company as well. So it is quite normal. So the conclusion was just like it was a normal phenomena for the talents to move around, to move between companies, even between industries, let's say. So when there is a talent market, and then there will be a solution. I don't know whether I.
No, yeah, it makes sense, and it's what you see. For example, in the U.S., you have SpaceX that attracted a lot of the best talents from NASA, and that is why they were able to have such an experienced team, since the early stages.
But anyway, I mean, generally, I would like to say it's already quite normal for talents to shift from one company to another. Okay. So and there is no big let's say no big issue for them to and on the other hand, the SOEs, they're trying to improve their salaries and just comprehensive working condition in the SOEs.
Work life balance and this kind of thing. Yeah. So the benefits, let's say the benefits. So it's kind of balance to keep between the SOEs and also the SMEs in the private space sectors. So
indeed,
that's the situation currently.
And now at Dongfang Hour, we are lucky enough to have a very engaged audience, and our audience has given us a handful of excellent questions. and we would be just irresponsible hosts if we did not get to some of these audience questions for Kevin. So I guess the first audience question, so we have Sally, who I thought this was an excellent question for any kind of space fan. So Kevin, Sally, she mentions that she is a devout member of the Church of Rocket Cameras, rocket cams, and the more rocket cams, the better. And she would like to know, Kevin, what is your opinion of rocket cams? And for viewers that may not know, rocket cams, it's self-explanatory, but it is a camera on a rocket that would be, capturing some part of the liftoff or otherwise some part of the rocket, unless I'm making a fool of myself here by mischaracterizing. So Kevin, your thoughts on rocket cams?
Interesting. For me, I'm also I'm also a rocket cam fan. Let's say I also would like to make as many as possible. Let's say practically or actually what we are doing in our project is that, let's say, as long as it is nothing related to the security or nothing quite confidential, let's say, to review, and then it is okay. So that's my idea.
You heard it here first. Kevin is a fan of rocket cams. That is good.
Yeah. But at least you cannot disclose anything confidential. Not only for the launcher company itself, but also for customers, because there are different types of satellite customers. Maybe some of them they would like to make their satellites to be famous, and there's still some companies, some customers, they don't want their information to be disclosed or to be
And just to build up on that, what are your thoughts on live streaming launches? Sort of what we've seen in the past. I think X-Space has done it with Kuaizhou, and also SpaceX does it for the Falcon 9 also. They live stream their launches. Is that something that Landspace could do for example, the Zhuque 2?
In the future, I can only say in the future, but not definitely not for the for debut flight. Just as, let's say, when the Q2 becomes mature and stable, let's say, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, but definitely it's cool. It's cool. I also agree, and I also want our launch process to be live streamed online. But what I would like to say, we can only make this happen gradually, step by step, let's say. Yeah. And also it's true that X-Space already set a quite good example to us, and they're trying to make it. Although there was some little unexpected occurrence during their first live streaming launch.
And last question, Kevin, from Sally. She's asking, why did Landspace choose the name Zhuque for its rockets? What does Zhuque mean? I'm sure there's a story.
Yeah, that is also quite good question. So here by this chance, I also would like to tell something like our brand stories. So for the Zhuque, and Zhuque in Chinese, let's say directly translated from Chinese to English, it's red bird. Red bird, actually, this red bird, or you can call it vermilion bird, it's kind of in the Chinese traditional culture. And there are 4 animals representing the 4 directions: north, south, east, and west. And then Zhuque is one of them, so one direction. And it's a kind of secret animals, and also more, because they are representing the directions. So it's a kind of, something, a secret animal that can give you something like directions, let's say. And then the red bird, this figure, or this this figure, it's quite similar to Phonics, but we also would like to name it Phonics, but Phonics, it is such a popular brand, and So much so that even each industry, they have a brand like Phonics. So it's not easy to get registered in the bureau. So that's why we finally we call it and we choose the name Zhuque. And it's also not bad, let's say, because it's one sacred animals representing the directions in the Chinese traditional legend. So it's something quite Chinese cultural.
Your Chinese cultural lesson for the day here at the Dongfang Hour. So that's an interesting story. That's a okay. I have one more kind of a simple audience question. Then I believe Jean has a couple of more
ones. So we have a question from AK9 DJ who would like to know what languages do you speak, Kevin?
Okay, quite interesting language. Quite interesting questions. Generally. Because I'm a Chinese, so Mandarin Chinese, and then English, a little bit un poco de español, and also a little bit, un petit peu de français, un petit peu seulement, and also a little bit German. Let's say, that's all. And Italian, I can read, because it's quite similar to Espanol or Portuguese, but I can speak. I cannot speak fluently. So mainly these foreign, almost all of these are European languages. Let's say because of, I guess that's because of my my study experience, my overseas study experience.
Truly a man of the world, Kevin. Truly a man of the world indeed. And Jean, I think we have a few other questions from a couple of audience members.
I have a last one before we move to our final part of general rapid fire questions. I have one from Barry Jenikins. He's asking, well, just to reformulate, basically we noticed that a lot of commercial new space companies, they have their rocket diameters that are either 225 meters, either 335, and that is the same as the state-owned enterprises. So I expect there's some sort of synergies because you cooperate with state-owned enterprises. And the question from Barry here is, the other diameter, the third diameter that the state-owned company use is 5 meters for Long March 5. And his question is, does Landspace plan to make a 5-meter diameter rocket? And if yes, will you cooperate with, say, CALT, because they have a lot of experience with Long March 5?
Okay. First of all, let me introduce a little bit of why the Long March family has chosen different diameters, the launcher body diameters, like 3.35 or 5 meters or something like that, or even smaller ones like 2.25. So the major limit is actually the transportation, the train transportation, because of the width of the tracks of the train tracks. If you really would like to transport the launchers by rail, and then the largest size limit is just 3.35. So that's why for all of these inland transportation launchers, they all choose 3.35 as the largest size they can, let's say, they can stand. So that's why. And for 5 meters diameter, as Long March 5 is using, it's actually because Long March 5 is actually integrated in Tianjin, which is a seaport, and then it is easy to get the Long March 5 launcher body, all of those, let's say, all of these tanks and the structure parts, the launcher body, and by seaway to Hainan, to Wenchang Satellite Launch Center. And so that is why Long March 5 can be only launched from Wenchang, from Hainan. Only that launch center can support Long March 5. But for smaller sizes, like, Long March 7 and Long March 2, 3, let's say all others, except Long March 5 up to now. Because right now, only Long March 5 is using the 5 meters size. So all of those, the rest, they could be launched from the inland launch centers like Zhuchuan, Xichang, and Taiwan. So, okay, so that's for this Long March family. And for us, actually, we are choosing the 3.35 diameter, the launcher body size, also, let's say, due to the same reason for the inland transportation, because we're planning to, let's say, to transport the VQ2 AIT facility in Zhejiang province. Right now, it will be located in the south city called Jiaxing. It's also in South China city. Jiaxing. It's also quite near to Shanghai and Hangzhou. It's also located in Zhejiang province. So from there to Jiuquan, to the Jiuquan satellite launch center, it will be also inland transportation. So that's why the biggest one we can choose is also 3.35. But for the 5 meters, I don't know whether there is a misunderstanding or information, let's say, information mistakes. We are actually not developing any launchers with the 5 meters body size. No.
No, that's good. That really that answers a lot of our questions regarding the diameters. It's true that a lot of people were wondering why these specific diameters, and it's really interesting to know that it's actually just linked to something as simple as track size and probably tunnels and this sort of thing. So it's really good to know. Blaine, I'm all done with the audience questions. Do you have any? You want to kick off the rapid fire questions?
Sure. So moving into our last section, the rapid fire questions. So Kevin, understanding that probably your first answer would be launch. We've asked this question with a small caveat. So if you were an investor and you had to choose one area of the Chinese space industry to invest into, and you could not pick launch, which part of the industry would you invest your money into as an investor?
I guess that will be satellite manufacturer, because that's what I'm more familiar with. That's the only reason, because more familiar I am with, and then let's say less risk I can control. And
yes,
because for me, all of these sectors in the space field are interesting and are attractive for me. But why satellite? That is because I'm more familiar with, because of due to my working experience.
Okay.
That makes sense. Jean?
My turn for the quick rapid fire question. My next question is, who is someone that you admire a lot in the space industry, and why?
Okay. Well, let's say up to now, I guess it is still we can call him the father of space, China space industry. It's Chen, Mr. Chen, Dr. Chen, let's say. So that's still, although we have so many, person of legend in the commercial space sectors, but I still admire him. The most one, let's say, the most admirable one for me, because it is him who opened up the view, let's say, the space view of the Chinese people, and that's why all of us can stand here, can sit here to have this Landspace office, so that Dr. Chen was really a great person, number one.
And is that just some background on who that is for our listeners? Chen Xueshen was a Chinese rocket scientist that was born in Hangzhou, I think, and then he moved to the U.S. He worked quite a few years at I think it was Caltech. He worked with famous people like von Karman, people like that.
GPL.
And all the way to GPL, and then I think he was one of the founders of GPL, and then he moved back to China in 1955, I think, and then that's when he built the early foundations of the Chinese industry, the first Long March rocket and all of that. So
1956, the space industry was established in
Okay.
That's true. So that's why and also his personal, let's say, his personal attractions, and really a charming person. And from his character and his knowledge and his view, and all of these, let's say, has helped shape the Chinese industry, the Chinese space industry. So that's why. So what we are doing is all, let's say, on the basis of his achievements.
Okay, great. Blaine, I have one last question, but before asking it, I would. Do you have any others that you want to bring forward?
I guess my last question would be: are you reading any good books about the space industry or about any other industry? Do you have any book recommendations? And my book recommendation, I've just finished an excellent book called Bezonomics, which was very interesting, written by Brian Dumaine. So I would my book recommendation is that. I would be happy to hear your book recommendation, Kevin, if you have one.
Yeah, okay. And for me, I'm reading actually a book related to the lunar exploration right now, actually, because it was kind of a list of, not a list, many evidence of showing that Apollo 11 or all of those Apollo projects were not fakes, were not hoax, because so that was quite interesting, because in that book I can read about quite a lot of pictures, real pictures, I guess, like something like a documentary in NASA. So, and also some other evidence of let's say just in written, and also someone's real words, something like that. So the name of that book is Lunar Exploration, a Hoax.
Lunar Exploration, a Hoax. Excellent. Let me have a look here. Okay, so, and Jean, anything from you, either on book recommendations or your last question?
My last question is half a joke, but also half I'm hoping I can get a positive answer from Kevin. Kevin, can Blaine and I come and watch the Juche 2 launch next year?
Great, you will be invited. Definitely you will be invited. I promise. I really promise.
Oh, thank you. Then
Excellent.
I'm really happy that question is not a joke.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. See you in Jiuquan.
Yeah. Because let me tell you why. And here is also a live, it's an also live ad, because let's say in Jiuquan this time, when ZQ2 is launched, it will be definitely a totally new launch pad. So that's why you can, let's say, you can be invited, because it's different from the traditional ones. Yeah, it's a new launch pad, let's say, dedicated for the Mesalox launchers. So you'll be welcome.
Excellent. Well then,
thank you very much, Kevin.
We are looking forward. So
so that's about all the questions I have. I think that's the same for you, Blaine. So just want to say thanks a lot, Kevin, for taking the time to take part in this episode 6 of Dongfang Hour. I think a lot of listeners will find the insights you've given very useful and very interesting. And maybe my last words here is good luck for Juche 2 next year, and really looking forward to being there for the launch.
Great, thank you so much. And also, I'm also so glad to be invited, and it's really interesting topic and really interesting questionnaires, and I enjoyed it quite much. And thank you both, and for giving me this opportunity as well. And I really hope all of these pandemic, so that we can meet in person, and to grab a coffee somewhere, or also another Chinese restaurant. Blaine, last time we tried Nanjing, right? And maybe you still remember you. I guess without Tianyi, but next time we'll have Tianyi as well, if it's possible, and also with Jean Deville. So you will be also welcome, Jean.
Well, Looking forward to it. Thank you, Kevin. It's been a great discussion. So thank you again for your time, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you. Have a good day.
Ciao, ciao.